Hello, and welcome to Confessions of a Dog Trainer. I'm so happy you're here. I wanted to start off with saying I love when you send me messages on Instagram. I don't know if it's a fluke or I really think maybe it's because of doing this episode or this podcast and getting back into it. I feel like what I share on here is just a little bit different, hopefully a little bit more personal than over on Instagram. So, and ever since I started doing this again, it's only been a week, but I get very excited. Um, I've been getting more messages from you, updates, how well things are going, if something from the podcast episode has helped you. And man, it lights me up. It makes me so excited to do these, to continue it, and hopefully continue to help you. I wanted to start by honoring my dad. Those of you who have listened to the other episodes know that I have been inspired to get back into podcasting because of him. He passed away unexpectedly in November, and he loved his podcast, The Real Cup of Joe. And so I like saying what he would say, Charlie, when he would do his podcast. I've got my cup of Joe, and I'll wait for you to get yours. This can be our kind of little hey dad kind of thing. Okay. So this episode, the title is, I think I might change this. I don't know why I'm saying this, but a focus was going to be when the board and train fails. One of you gave me this idea for a podcast topic, and I thought it was, I don't know, kind of cool. I want this podcast to be different than other dog training podcasts. I think I'm much more than a dog trainer. I think you are much more than dog owners. There's a lot that we can talk about that maybe has nothing to do with dog training, but all of it relates to each other. And I thought it was just a fun spin of I am a board and train trainer. That is when I work with a dog and owner in person, it is through the board and train. So I thought it might be interesting to hear what happens when the board and train fails, because it does. So I first wanted to uh, kind of talk about the current dog I have in Layla. She is a reactive dog. Um, by the time you're listening to this, I either still am working with her or I did work with her. You can go and take a look at her highlight. I share all of my stories when I work with her and share the little clips to my stories on Instagram. I save them to her highlight. And I just wanted to talk about the things that made the biggest difference in the first few days of having her and kind of just a peek inside the board and train. Uh, Anytime I'm sharing stuff on Instagram and on here, I want it to be replicable for you as an owner working with your dog. I'm not trying to share things to highlight how awesome the board and train is. I do love sharing things for the owners I work with. I know they love seeing their dog and the progress, and I always try to tell owners at drop off, hey, I'm going to share so much information, so much stuff about your dog. It is for you and other owners who are following along who have dogs similar to yours in hopes that it will be helpful. I don't want to do this dog training stuff in a way that only I can do it. And dog training is this magical, mystical thing that only dog trainers can do. I don't believe that's true. So I wanted to share some stuff the first few days of having Layla here in hopes that maybe you could tweak a little something with your dog, or it makes you think about, oh, I haven't really thought about addressing that. It can be little things that are easy to overlook. So again, she's a reactive dog. That is like our big goal, working through the reactivity. And I know a lot of you can relate. When I get a dog like her in for the board and train, I have her for 2 weeks. I'm really looking for little things to address. We kind of tapped into this on, I think in the last episode, it was all about e-collar levels and reactivity. Or maybe it was the one before that. The top 3 things I recommend owners with reactive dogs do. So go back, take a listen to that, or listen to it. But hopefully this will be a little bit helpful too. Okay. I gotta be honest, doing this podcast, it's so different from, it's been a while since I've done this. So also, since you can see me now with a video attached to the podcast, when I'm doing stories on Instagram, it's very easy to edit myself, or oh, I don't like how that sounded, or I would like to say this differently, or I fumbled on my words. I can delete it and redo it. On here, I don't want to edit and delete. I just want to talk to you as if we're sitting down talking. And I have to remind myself, all of us fumble. None of us say things perfectly. So hopefully you stick with me, even if I'm a little fumbly at times. So with Layla, one of the first things I did is introduce the e-collar. Those of you who have our e-collar starter guide, where it lays out exactly how to introduce the e-collar, it's one of the 3 ways that I introduce the e-collar that I put in there. And the one that I like to do personally is the tone plus stim without a leash. Now, this to me is my favorite way because I am very comfortable and confident using the e-collar. I actually don't think that it's the way owners should do it, because most owners are really nervous about using the e-collar. So when you don't have a leash to guide your dog through moments when maybe they get nervous, or let's say if I'm doing that kind of an intro session where it's the tone followed by the stim and it's right around the working level. And again, if you don't really understand what the working level is, what that means, take a look at our e-collar starter guide. I promise it's worth it. It has videos, all the things. It's jam-packed, but I show you exactly how to find the working level. So if I'm working with Layla and I go tap on tone, tap on stim, and I'm just saying her name, I'm not really doing recall. I'm more than anything just wanting her to start come my way. And when she starts to come my way, pressure goes away on the e-collar. When she starts to get out of my bubble, then I start doing it again. Tone plus stim, tone plus stim. If I am an owner and I've never used the e-collar before, and let's say I do that and the dog freaks out, even at a lower level. Some dogs are much more sensitive. Also, some dogs are much more dramatic. That would freak me out as an owner. So this is why I recommend to owners starting with the e-collar, have a leash on, start indoors, start with place. That is my favorite way for owners to introduce the e-collar. Just want to preface with that. But I like to move away from using the leash as soon as possible because I like to, our kennel room is, so on our back porch, we have a door that goes into our garage. And then there's an attached room that I think the person who lived here before used it as like a woodworking room or something. And there's a door to it. So it feels like a separate room. I think it was after 4 years of doing board and trains in our home, where the dogs would be in our home, we finally put a split unit AC unit in that room so it could be our kennel room. We painted it. I painted it a dark green. I have no idea why. Why I didn't do it like a bright color, I don't know. Because now whenever I do videos or stories in that room, it looks so dark. And I'm like, oh, this probably doesn't look that great on Instagram. Anyway, having your dogs in your home for the board and train, it can feel hard to disconnect from being a trainer and being just a person. It's hard to separate the two. So anyway, so Layla and training dogs are out there. So I like to go from the kennel room to outside without a leash on. It helps me really fast forward in the process of e-collar training. It helps me get them more confident and comfortable with the tone and feeling the stim and what to do with it. So I like to jump straight into that exercise of tone plus stim, no leash. And actually what I did before that was a little bit of a threshold exercise. I had a leash on. I introduced her to the prong collar, which really does not take much. Those of you who have been told or you think that you need to introduce these tools, like let's say the e-collar, and you should condition it for 2 weeks before ever dialing up or whatever, it's just not true. I introduce it in a few days, and then you continue to condition, quote unquote, condition it when you're using it in everyday life. And I'll talk about how I did that with Layla. So I did a little threshold exercise at our back door. I'll have to share that on Instagram. It's really simple. It's around still her working level, maybe a few levels above. The e-collar I use has 100 levels, the mini educator. And it's really just when she starts to creep up to that doorway, I would give a tap on the stim around her working level. Layla's working level, just for perspective purposes, is about a 6. So at that doorway, it might have been like a 9-10. I want it to mean a little bit something. I want her to feel it. I want to be able to see that she feels it, where at the working level, sometimes you can't really see a dog really responding, which is ideal for a working level. So did that a couple of times, and then she would start to slow down when we would walk back up to the doorway, which is a great sign. Awesome. Because with Layla, a huge priority for me is slowing her down across the board. And this is why, because I want this to be doable for you at home. This is not some dog trainer magic that I'm doing. It's really using the management tools that I know are so helpful. Place command, kennel, and the kennel is not just kennel time, it is calm in the kennel. And that can be challenging. And that's one of the biggest things I'm going to talk to you about when working with Layla that has been so helpful. It's not just being in the kennel, standing up and like looking around, it's calm in the kennel. place command, and heel command. All of these commands are great at helping a dog just relax a bit. Layla is known to be on all the time. Something that's really interesting that I've never really had a dog in with this. She was known to throw up every few days, and the owner is on top of things. Got her checked out at the vet, and the vet, I forget what the vet said it was, but nothing really wrong with her. It's just something that happens. And so she got dropped off on Thursday. Today it's Tuesday, and she hasn't thrown up at all. So I don't know if it's because she was just on all the time and constantly like doing things and like lots of freedom running around that it would get her so worked up that she would throw up sometimes, or we're not really having that. Now I'm having fun with her. This doesn't mean that she's so adorable. I mean, if you haven't been following her stories, go take a look at her highlights. She has like a little underbite. When I get dogs in with little cute teeth and an underbite, it literally makes me feel like I have the best job in the world. I don't care about anything else. The little underbite always gets me. But fun to me with her is bringing her somewhere new. Like yesterday was the first time outside of the dog park, and her not being crazy, zooming all over, but really being in tune with me, giving her some freedom because she has worked up to that. She deserves it because she's not being a total nuisance. And so we can enjoy more with her. Okay, so anyway, the few things that made the biggest difference with Layla in the first few days. The first day was all about getting her to relax in the kennel. Now I have to ask her owner. I'm pretty sure that Layla is totally fine in the kennel. She's in the kennel when they leave, in the kennel overnight. There was really no issues with kennel stuff. But when a dog gets here, this is a new place. She was a little bit nervy with me at first. So when she was first in the kennel, first I introduced the e-collar, doing that one session I talked about, tone plus stim, with no leash in the backyard. And also getting her to go into the kennel. Before I talk about kennel stuff, one thing that was really helpful, one of the big problems that the owner was having with her was she would put on the brakes a lot. I know a lot of you struggle with this, when your dog will either sniff something on the walk, they put on the brakes, and they forget the rules and boundaries, whatever. Or Layla would do that. She'd get up on the couch, and I could totally see why she's on the couch because she is super cuddly and sweet. And she would refuse to get off the couch. It's like she turns into 1,000 pounds of bricks or something. So one thing that has been really helpful for this, and I have not seen her do it since, doesn't mean that she never will, but now we have a new conversation going with her where it can be non-negotiable. Like, hey, we're not doing that anymore. Let's go. So how I did this was, again, I like to get off leash as soon as possible with the e-collar on. So when I brought her into the kennel room, I closed the door that goes into the garage. So then we just have the garage and the kennel room. So sure enough, she didn't want to come with me into the kennel room, which makes total sense. I'm a new person. Who am I? And she would put on the brakes and just stop and stare at me. So what was really helpful was pairing tone with stim. And I dialed up a couple of levels, nothing crazy. I think it was probably like 12, something like that, where I started at level 10. So I think I would just say her name still. I wasn't doing recall at the time because a lot of times saying come doesn't really mean anything. So I want to wait until we've got a really good thing going, and then I can layer that word over the tone button, the sound. So I would do that with her. I'd tap on tone, tap on stim. If she would just continue to stand there, I would dial up one level, tap on tone, tap on stim. She would stay there. I dial up one more, tap on tone, tap on stim. Sure enough, she'd start walking my way. So you start to kind of create a bubble. And it also helped that I already did this outside 5 minutes earlier, or, right before that. So she understands, okay, I've felt this pressure. Whatever a dog thinks, it's based on what they're feeling and what happens when you move away from this person. I feel the pressure again. Nothing crazy. It's kind of similar to leash guidance. I feel the pressure. When I get closer to her, the pressure goes away. There's no pressure. Great. When I move away from her, pressure. When I get back closer to her, no pressure. So a dog starts to want to turn off that pressure. And it's a really cool thing when you see it. So sure enough, she gets into the kennel room. And she comes up to close to the kennel. The kennel door is open. I want her to go in the kennel, puts on the brakes, starts walking away. And I went again to tap on tone, tap on stim. She turned back towards me. and got in her kennel. Now, it doesn't always go this easily. Some dogs are a bit tougher. Sometimes I have to dial up a little bit more. And this is on day one because we're introducing the e-collar and how to turn off the pressure. I used to think when I first got into e-collar training that you had to stay at the working level. So once you find the working level, you can't go above it. But when I'm working with reactive dogs, dogs that are barking, I have to stop that on day one. And now that I have dialed up a bit, maybe on day one, day two, instead of staying so low, I find much more success much more quickly. And we really get the conversation going. So it's much more clear to a dog rather than nagging them for the first week because I thought that's what I was supposed to do with the e-collar. So I've seen a big difference in progress with the dog. And ultimately, we want to help a dog get to a space where they're calmer, they're happier, they're able to do more with us, and the e-collar can really help with that. So that was a really awesome exercise that made a huge difference. I still had to do that maybe 3 more times that day, and then the next day, sure enough, she starts coming into the kennel room, getting in the kennel, without me really having to use the e-collar, without her putting on the brakes, stuff like that. So that was so awesome, and I'm telling you, if you stick with it and you just do it and you create that new clarity, you're going to see a big change in your dog. But I think a lot of people get nervous when, let's say, if you're an owner working with your dog and your dog puts on the brakes and you dial up a little bit, your dog still puts on the brakes. It can feel like you're doing something wrong. And so hopefully by sharing this, it helps you with the e-collar stuff. I know e-collar stuff can be really overwhelming. And my goal is to demystify the e-collar stuff. Okay. The other thing that was really helpful was the first day was really all about that. So conditioning the e-collar in that way, where I'd let her out into the backyard. I also shared in some of my stories how I did this in the house with a leash on because I have dogs here and I wanted to be able to guide her as much as possible in our house. But outside, no leash, and really just kind of every now and then tap on tone, tap on stim. And what would start to happen is now tone means more because I paired the two together. So when I would say Layla and tap on tone, she would start coming my way, which is great. So you can see these big changes pretty soon when working with your dog. So hopefully that gives you some, I don't know, reassurance or motivation. When I first heard my friend Heather and Corrine from Positively Calm are the ones that told me about this exercise, I couldn't wait to go home and work with the dog I had at the time. A highlight to watch if you want to see me do this is my Maggie and Ivy highlight. I don't know where it is because I have a couple of highlights. Shout out to their awesome owner, Brooke, who is so great, total dream owner. And I shared in those stories what that looked like. I was so excited to get home. I rarely get excited about dog training stuff, but that was a really fun exercise because you see kind of it starts to click with your dog and they come closer to you, they go away, then they come closer and they start to realize, ooh, being closer to you is much better than being away from you. So with the kennel stuff, day one was really all about kennel stuff because she was a bit whiny, barking, wanting to paw at the kennel door. And so I was watching on a camera to interrupt any of the barking for sure. And I'm using the e-collar. Some trainers will use a bark collar. I like to be, I guess, I'm controlling in a way with this, but I like to be in control of when I'm using the e-collar and what level. So I was really around maybe 10 to 15. The only time I went higher was when she went to paw at the door, because to me, I have found if I address that in a more meaningful way, it really kind of snaps the dog out of it. And then once they know they can't do that, then they tend to not always relax, but like, okay, I can't do that. What else can I do? And it's usually, well, sit and not really enjoy this being in the kennel, but you'll get used to it. So with that, I think I went up to 30. And again, that was day one. I think she let out a art and then sat back and she eventually laid down. So those of you who are struggling with any kind of separation anxiety, addressing this stuff in the kennel can be so, so helpful. So that was day one. Day two, she was much better, really no whining or barking. And then what we've been doing, which I really enjoy, is our workout area is out in the garage. So when we work out and we have a training dog, I'll open the kennel door room and it's good exposure for a dog to be in the kennel. The first few days, she would pop up a lot from a down, which is totally normal. And so on day 2, I started going in and asking her for down. And I think I would bring a piece of food to either lure her or reward her when she'd get down into the down. But I like to start pairing a double tap on the e-collar with down. Layla came to us knowing this command, which is really helpful. So I like to pair a tap tap on the e-collar with down. I like pairing that together. So now we've been working on treadmill stuff, which has been so much fun. She's really taken to it, and her owner might get a treadmill, which is really exciting. But anyway, those are the top things that have been really helpful on the walk when it comes to reactivity. It's a lot like what I talked about in the last episode about levels and reactivity. Her reactivity is intense. So the thing that helped the most was addressing the actual outburst when she started reacting. And it was high. It was about 90 out of 100. So it was a press and hold at 90 for a second, big moment of discomfort, and then she hasn't done it since. And so now we're working through things like a little bit of whiny stuff, which is very common. Once you address the big stuff with a more meaningful level, then you start to see little things that pop out or that I don't know, to me, it's kind of like the remnants of reactivity. So it's the little things that come out now that she can't react the way she wants to, which is big and loud and sounds scary. So that's what we're doing. She's doing great. I'm really excited. Reactive dogs are my favorite to work with. And as much as I do not like dialing up that high to address things, she is a sweet girl. I do find that a moment of discomfort is super helpful in the rehab process, because once you make that uncomfortable, now we can start to say yes to a lot of things and show her what we want her to do instead. So I'll keep sharing on Instagram. I've shared some of this. Yesterday I shared, and it's in Layla's highlight, about the whiny stuff outside of the dog park. You can kind of see how she looks when she's like observing the dogs in the park, but she's not super amped up and barking and lunging. So it's all about progress. I highly recommend that you, owner, working with your dog, you start to remember how far you've come, because it's so hard when you're in it to really see clearly. I do it myself as a trainer. When I have a training dog in, I get so immersed in it and I'm with them every day. It's really hard to recognize the progress. So that's why sometimes I'll go back and look at the before footage or post a before and after in my stories. So I can really remind myself, hey, we've come a long way, because it's never really easy, but it's a process. Okay, so I don't know if the title of this podcast is going to be this, but I wanted to touch on when the board and train fails. And for me, it really comes down to one thing. Now, I want to preface with, if you're a newer trainer, please don't listen to this and think you're a bad trainer if you're doing this, not doing this, or if you're like, oh my gosh, I just did that with an owner, whatever. I used to get so self-conscious when I would hear other trainers talk about stuff, and I was like, oh no, I'm doing that. Like, I'm a bad trainer. No, it's just, we all learn. We can all get better. Um, One time I had, speaking of when the board and train fails, I thought I turned out a perfect dog. There's no such thing, but to a trainer, we know. When we turn out a dog that's like, okay, it's listening, is doing all the things, it's like bing, bang, boom, things are going great. But I was missing a big piece of the program that makes a board and train successful, and that was the owner piece. I thought it was going good, but my communication was lacking. So I ended up getting, long story short, I ended up getting a text or an email from the owner's daughter saying, you did a terrible job. My trainer up north did so much better. You should have spent more time with her at the go home session, blah, blah, blah. And I read it when I was at the fresh market. Do any of you have that? It's a bougie grocery store. I was in the line and I read it. I was with Bobby, and I'm pretty sure my face just turned tomato red. I was embarrassed. I felt like, what if she tells other people and other trainers? What are people going to think of me? Um, and yeah, I felt like a total failure. And I remember I called my dad. He was my mentor because he was just such a good business guy. He was a sales guy his whole life, pretty much. And he always gave me the best advice. It was never based on trying to fix things. It was really based on listening to me and giving me like some practical advice. I miss that. But I'm so glad he was with me during those messier times of being a trainer. And I remember we met up at Starbucks, and I'm sharing this really for other trainers, just so you know you're not the only one. Or if you just had a not so great thing happen with an owner, you're not the only one. And he said to me, because I was feeling really defeated, I felt like a terrible trainer. And he was like, hey, you can do one of two things. You can give up now. You can take this as a sign that you shouldn't be doing this and stop training dogs and just throw in the towel. Or you can take this and make your business even better. You can make the experience for your owners even better because of this feedback. You can take this feedback as a positive and grow from it. Pretty much. My dad was very wordy. So it was something like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. Well, I don't have a college degree. I have a associate's degree, and I really don't want to go back to nursing school. That was my other fallback. It's just not a fallback, but it's like you can go to school to be a nurse. But blood makes me queasy, and I can't imagine like cleaning up throw up. Oh no, I can't do that. So uh, we ended up putting together he helped me put a email together to send to the owner, and I started coming up with ideas to completely change my program where it was more focused on the owner than the dog, because turns out it's not about the dog. Yes, you can get great results with the dog, but if you're not really clearly communicating with owners, it doesn't work. So now today I over communicate. I'll call an owner about something really before I even work it through my head, just to talk with the owner and like get everything out on the table. Like, hey, this is going on. Just wanted to let you know and kind of talk through some things. So I don't know if that's a professional move, but I also know that communicating clearly with owners, it's a strength of my business. So I'm also particular about the owners I work with. They have to be following me on Instagram. I have a couple of times where um, I changed this policy because I really liked the owners. But that's important to me. They need to be on board. I'm not here to talk through e-collar stuff and convince you that e-collar work is right for you. Um, so having them follow me on Instagram has been a total game changer with that. So all that being said, our failures can really teach us a lot. And I'm 38 years old. I have so much more to learn. I'm sure that I'm going to work with more owners and dogs that teach me so much more. But that was a huge, I don't know, kind of wake up call for me. And one of the best things that ever happened to me, even though at the time I thought, oh, this is the worst thing ever. I am the worst trainer, blah, blah, blah. Okay. I kind of got off on a tangent, but I really hope that encourages a trainer out there who's newer. Please remember that it's all about the owner. That was a big motivation for me with my content I share on Instagram, the stories I share about the dogs I'm working with. I am thinking about the owner because it really doesn't matter. I mean, it's helpful to have skills with dogs and know what you're doing. That comes with time, though. The more dogs you work with, and you can go to shadow programs, things like that. But if you really focus and make it a priority of your business to focus on the owner and kind of build your program around the owner, what they need from you, you're just going to see a huge difference. I think I'll share this in another episode, maybe more for trainers. Owners you can listen to, of course, where it's the things that have really helped me with, I don't know, feeling more confident with my owner side of things, because that can be really a missing piece for a lot of trainers. Okay, so the number one thing I think that leads to a board and train failing is expectations. So if working with two different owners, there's a big difference in how the process will look, no matter who you are, what the program looks like, whatever. One owner says, I want you to fix my dog. I don't want my dog to ever react again. Another owner who says, okay, my dog's super reactive. I know she's not going to be perfect, but I just want to be able to feel more confident going on walks and enjoying more with her. Which program do you think is going to be a more enjoyable process and a more realistic process? The one who knows that her dog will not be perfect, but she wants to better manage situations. So this has been huge for me. I've seen it with different owners that I've worked with, mistakes I've made where a good example is these two little Boston Terriers I worked with. And oh my gosh, they were the best little dogs. They made me obsessed with Boston Terriers. And the owners were super sweet. So when we come to expectations, it's all about setting those expectations up in the beginning. what should your owner expect from you? What should your owner expect when your dog gets back home? I find that's really helpful. So kind of like already anticipating some messy things that might happen when the dog gets back home, and maybe on day one saying something to the owner. A good example is Layla, who just came in, and her owner sent me some before footage. And to me, Layla is an intensely reactive dog. Right away, with my experience, I know her owner is probably going to have to use some higher levels when her dog gets back home. Maybe not, but I find that it's better to say this stuff, and then maybe if the dog gets back home and she doesn't have to, great. But kind of setting the stage as, this might need to happen. Are you prepared for this? Are you okay with that? And I said that to her, and she said, yes, I'm okay with that. Because if I'm working with an owner who I maybe is new to e-collar training, and they have a reactive dog, and at the go home session 2 weeks later, so my board and train is 2 weeks long. I love that time frame. I think of it as a head start. It's not a end all be all. It's a head start for an owner so that I can work through the messy stuff, and then the owner can feel confident moving forward using these new tools and better managing situations. There are trainers out there who would never do 2 weeks, who think 2 weeks is way too short. It's also different, but it works for me. So with what was I saying? So I'm just going to talk about these two Bostons and their owners. So at the go home session, it was both of them. Now they're husband and wife. They were fiancés at the time. And at the go home session, the guy was very hesitant about the e-collar, wanting to baby the dogs, wanted the dogs to get up on the couch with him, and really having a hard time with just following through with things, I would say, which can be very awkward. She was super on board with everything. Him, I was getting the feeling that he was much more of a softie, which that can happen. It's not the end of the world. But I was feeling a little bit awkward. Like, hey, you have two reactive dogs. Getting up and snuggling with you on the couch is not my number one priority. Doesn't mean it will never happen. So anyway, okay, so go home session. Everything seems great. A couple weeks later, or a week later, they wanted me to come for a follow-up visit. They were kind of struggling. So I went to their apartment to work through some things. Turns out he did not want to use the e-collar, kind of almost very much against using the e-collar. This was news to me. I didn't know this. But again, this is my fault. I should have asked these questions before. Now I am like overly communicative with owners, asking you, so you're on board with things. This is why I want them to follow on Instagram so they can see what the process looks like through all of our highlights and things like that. It was a very awkward session. I ended up getting a little bit flustered and defensive because I think I said something like, I wouldn't have worked with you if I knew that you weren't on board with the e-collar. It was just kind of, it threw me. Where now looking back, I know it was my fault. It's not their, they invested in this program, yes. And some people will say, but they invested in the program. Wouldn't they be on board and make sure they're okay with everything? I mean, yeah, but some people just want help and they don't realize that it's a lot of stuff. The board and train is a total reset. And what helps the best for owners, and now what I say to owners is, I'm going to ask you to do whatever the things are, X, Y, and Z, because this will make the transition back home as smooth as possible. That is what I say, word for word, because it's true. We don't want it to just be the rules at Bethany's house. We want these same rules to apply at your house. So following through with these things, following through with the e-collar when you say no, or place time instead of couch time, this will make the transition back home super smooth, and it makes this training sustainable. I actually tell owners, do this stuff for 2 weeks. Now, that's very lenient. A lot of trainers out there have like a 3-month protocol where, their owners have to do this stuff for 3 months, whatever, which is totally fine. For me, I have found that 2 weeks, it really helps owners stick with things, and then they can start to add in maybe some couch time. I don't work with human aggressive dogs. I don't work with super serious resource guarding dogs. There's always different situations that call for different expectations. I work with reactive dogs and pushy young dogs. And so I don't mind owners kind of adding in some things here and there that they used to do with still having some boundaries. What I always say is, okay, add in some couch time maybe after the 2 weeks and see how your dog does. a lot of times what happens, and I swear this happens, I'm not just saying it, they see it for themselves. Their dog ends up being a little extra pushy on the next walk. It's like they're smart in this way. They're also very manipulative. So I know this, but I want them to experience it. I want them to see it, and then they have me for support if they need it. So expectations again, it all comes back to being super clear with owners about what to expect with your program. Um, if an owner, I work with the best owners now because I'm very clear about what's expected. I'm very picky about owners I work with. Some have slipped through the cracks that were not the best experience for me, but they taught me a lot. But now the things I share on Instagram, hopefully tell a story to the owner I'm going to work with about what's possible. Things I can send to them if a lot of times I'll do on our contact form. If you don't follow me on Instagram, I'm currently only working with owners that follow me on Instagram. Please send me a private message and so we can start talking. And they'll message me, and based on their dog, if it's a little Yorkie or a big Doberman, I'll send them names of highlights to watch so that they can see from start to finish a dog that maybe is relatable to them, so they can see, oh, wow, this is what's possible. So I found that to be really powerful. I work with owners who pretty much trust me. Maybe not 100%. There's always, I think everyone should be a little, I don't know, a little hesitant or, I don't know, when dropping your dog off somewhere new. Please do your research. Follow people on Instagram, see what they're doing, see what they're up to, check out their videos, make sure they're the right fit. But for me, expectations are really clear from the beginning. They weren't always that way. And because of that, owners struggled when they went back home because I was working with owners who, for whatever reason, thought the board and train was a fix. Their dog would never struggle again. And the dog would get home, be a little bit pushy, do a little whatever, and they would struggle. So, another thing I have found to be really helpful is communication. So now I'm just telling you things that are helpful, but I've definitely failed. When someone messaged me about this title for a podcast, I was like, oh, I really want to tell my failures because I do board and trains, but doesn't mean I'm a perfect board and train trainer. By no means, I'm definitely not. I've learned a lot and I really enjoy our program. It's a program I would want my dog to go to, which I'm really proud of, but it's taken some time. So the other thing, what was I saying? Okay, the owner side, expectations. Oh, shoot. Okay, now I forget what I just said. I got distracted. But anyway, expectations are really important. I gave you a couple of stories of failed board and trains. Yeah, and another thing would be, since I'm an e-collar trainer, and this is what has really inspired me to do, the last few podcast episodes about e-collar levels, higher levels, why that's so important. Yes, I'm thinking about you as an owner who's following on Instagram and working with their dog, or got our e-collar starter guide and you're still struggling with reactivity. I'm sharing for you, but I'm also sharing for the potential owner I might work with for the board and train program who, if an owner hears me talk about levels, meaningful levels, higher levels, then it kind of demystifies that and it kind of takes away the fear of using those levels. And I've heard that from you too. When you reach out and tell me, hey, I finally dialed up and look, the heel on the walk is so much better. And that's why I share to kind of, I don't know, I know this stuff it can make you fearful. No one wants to ruin their dogs or do the wrong thing. So I hope that by sharing this stuff, it's helpful for you in that way. Okay, I feel like this episode has been a little chaotic. I really hate chaos. I like when things are like lined up and smooth. But I hope that everything I've shared is helpful. Message me on Instagram. Let me know if you have any questions or if you had a little bit of an aha moment. I swear, you all bring me so much life and help me feel so purposeful. Okay, I was going to read, and we're already at 39 minutes, so I'm just going to read one question from someone that I think is a really relatable one. And it's helpful I've been really enjoying sharing stuff about reactivity because I love working with reactive dogs and owners of reactive dogs. So I've been sharing a lot about that. And this one kind of has to do, it's one of those little things where it's worth addressing if you're working through reactivity. Because again, like I said before, it's not just about the big reactive moment, it's about these other little things too. So she asked, how would you address zoomies on the walk? Dog is e-collar trained and we use the prong collar too. So this can happen. Someone messaged me the other day about this where you say break. That's what I say for the walk. When you're walking, your dog is in heel most of the time, and then you say break to let your dog go sniff or go potty, really. Some dogs will take break as like zoom and start zooming around. I think I addressed this in the problem solver part of the e-collar starter guide. So if you want like some reading material too, plus this, go take a look at that. It might be recall, and it's a command I like to use, easy, with a pairing of the e-collar. So I want you to address the zoomies on the break. Another thing to think about is, I'm just going to take, for example, let me take a sip of my coffee. The girl who messaged me about her dog just like total zoomy mode when she says break on the walk. She had the idea and has heard before that dogs need sniffing time and free time on the walk to be their best selves or fulfilled. So that's all great, but a lot of dogs can't handle that amount of free time and that kind of freedom. So when I'm working with a dog, let's say a reactive dog, and I start to teach them break. So we're first working on heel. Heel is king. So that is number one on the walk. Heel is everything. Then we start to add a little bit of freedom, a little bit of leash guidance, break. And I might even tap on tone to encourage movement to break over to the grass. That does not mean a dog can pull me and go back to their pulling ways. So I will correct for pulling against the leash. What I usually will do is if the dog goes to the end of the leash, because they'll also feel like the prong collar, I'll add a tap on the e-collar. So level wise, it could be a little bit higher than the working level. You could start maybe 10 above the working level. You want it to mean something where it's like, oh, okay, can't do that. It's a boundary. Then you'll see a little bit of less pulling. So keep your leash kind of short. We do have, those of you who have our hands-free leash, we really don't sell them anymore. I get them from Adventure Hound Customs. I think that's their name on Instagram. They're linked all through our e-collar starter guide. But we used to sell these leashes. We do still have available the blue ones that I named Lake House because one of my dreams is to live on a lake house. So manifesting through my leashes. But the great thing about it is you can unsnap it so that it can be a little bit longer, which is nice. But even if you keep the leash short and when you go over to say break, don't give too much leash. Maybe that's something that would be helpful in the zoomy stuff where you can slow your dog down, still expect them to walk nicely on leash, but give a little bit of a break and pull back on the amount of freedom you're giving on those breaks. So I know this can feel like a lot, but when you're first working through reactivity or rules on the walk, a lot of dogs can't handle that much freedom. So we pull back a little bit, more heel than free time. And really, a nice walk is the reward. It's rewarding for a dog to walk and like sniff and like observe. You're outside, nature, nice. That's a reward. You can work up to like some long line work and really working on the long line stuff and slowing a dog down with the zoomies. If let's say I have a dog on a long line leash and we're doing long line work and they start getting zoomy, I'll use the e-collar just to like slow them down because your dog is e-collar trained, which is great. So you can use the e-collar to be like, hey, enough. But you give a tap on the e-collar, tap, tap. And what I usually do is easy, where I'll say easy, tap on the e-collar. And this is a more meaningful level for you. I don't know what it is. Feel free to message me on Instagram and let me know what levels you're using. And I can maybe best coach you for that situation. But you're really just using the e-collar as an interrupter. The e-collar is a great interrupter. It's not just about correcting stuff. And I mean, that's kind of technically a correction. You're just wanting the dog to stop zooming. Some videos maybe to watch, would be our long line videos in our e-collar starter guide, just to kind of see how I use the e-collar, having the dogs in more of like my bubble. Another thing too, look for little moments before you say break that maybe you could address. A lot of times when a dog is super amped up on the walk, then they're going to be super amped up when you say break. So that's something to think about. Like when, let's say Layla I'm working with now, she's a very excitable dog, but on the walk, we've calmed things way down with heel. And so she's not really allowed to get super amped up about things like squirrels she loves. And I'll use the e-collar to interrupt those moments. Hey, not doing that anymore. So I hope that that's helpful. I think this is a good place to leave off. I'm slightly sweaty. I think I get so excited about doing this, and then I have caffeine. It makes me sweaty a little bit. Anyway, I hope that this was helpful. Yeah, please let me know if you have any questions. I promise, messaging me on Instagram, it helps me feel connected. It might seem like I uh, have a lot of friends. I don't have no idea. Or when someone has followers on Instagram and you think, oh, they're like super connected or have a great community. A lot of times it feels lonely on Instagram, to be honest. It's just me doing stories. And so when you message me and let me know that you're like working on this stuff or something helped you or share your wins with me, I mean, I love all of that. That makes me feel so connected to you. And I'm really craving that. So anyway, thank you so much for being here. And until next time, bye.